Hello, I'm Hugh Pearman, author of the new book from Yale Art and Architecture about architecture. It's a title, An Essential Guide in 55 Buildings. The aim of this book is to make architecture something enjoyable and accessible to the interested layperson. It's not aimed at academics. And it does this in a particular way, and that is to take the ways we live our lives and, if you like, transcribe that into the way buildings are used. So I slice up architecture into 11 different types. And they are as follows. Civic buildings, and by that I mean everything from a town hall to a complete urban layout across history. Houses, of course, from medieval farmhouses through terraces to high modernism and the present day. Education, from primary schools in equatorial Africa to the great modern universities. Offices, industry, transport, museums, performance buildings, that's theatres and concert halls, opera houses and so forth. Religious buildings, all kinds. Retail buildings, shopping. And finally, and this was very important to me, gardens. And by gardens, I mean highly designed spaces from the gardens of Renaissance and the landscape movement of the 18th century, through to the High Line in New York, for instance, which, if you know it, is a new linear park made from what had been an abandoned elevated railroad on the west side of Manhattan. So there's a lot of variety in this book, and it's done in a particular way. For each of those 11 sections, there are 5 particular case studies, and each of those case studies is, if you like, a story in itself, a short story. So let's take one section almost at random. Let's take performance, for instance. Here we have the introduction to the performance section. And this is Palladio's great Teatro Olimpico in Vicenza, Italy, setting the scene for that section. And from there we go on to the theatre at Epidavros in Greece, Greek and Roman amphitheatre, extraordinary acoustics, very early form, and a form which Palladio in Vicenza was referring to. From there we go on to the Globe Theatre in London, obviously a modern reconstruction, but that particular story discusses the origins of modern theatre back in Elizabethan times. Wagner's Festspielhaus in Bayreuth, built specifically to house his ring cycle, place of pilgrimage for opera lovers today. The best known building in the entire world, I would say, the Sydney Opera House, and the saga of it coming into being and becoming that icon for Australia. And this section ends with Frank Gehry's Walt Disney Concert Hall in Los Angeles, which was his first really audacious computer-aided and sculptural design for a cultural building. So that gives the span of that section, and each of the sections works in that way. There are 5 case studies, 5 stories about particular buildings, the people who commissioned them, the people who designed and built them, where they are, broadly chronologically across history. And each example in each section is from a different country in the world. And that broadly speaking, is the structure of the book, which aims to be extremely simple. The idea is both to demystify architecture and to make it enjoyable for a wide audience. So I hope you enjoy it too.